in the meeting room at Holiday Inn, and today I'd like to talk to you about the difference between synthetic oil and conventional oil. Don't you dread it when you're having your vehicle serviced and the technician working on it says, "What will it be, synthetic or conventional?" If you're not very mechanically inclined or a trained technician like I am, you may struggle with that question. Today I'd like to talk to you about synthetic oils, how they came on the marketplace, the pros and cons between using synthetic oil and conventional oil, and finally I'd like to just share some practical tips and suggestions when having your vehicle serviced. Now for a little background info to begin your education on synthetic oils. What is synthetic oil? Where did it come from? Synthetic oils came from the same crude oil that conventional oil is made from. It's just refined better. It's refined to the point that all the molecules are the same size. In conventional oil, you'll find molecules that are this big and some that are this big and some that are very small. There's no consistency. In synthetic oils, they're refined to the point where every molecule is the same size. This provides a much better flow rate, and that's why they have a superior film strength. The way that they are tested, they fill glass cylinders with oil, and then they drop a ball bearing through them, and they measure the time that it takes for the ball bearing to flow to the bottom, and that's how they get their flow rate. I have a chart here to show you an example of. There's 4 different viscosity ratings of oil, 4 different tubes full of oil, and as you can see, they drop the ball bearing in at the same time. At this lower viscosity, the higher the flow rate, the ball bearing has already almost reached the bottom. The next grade up, slightly, and so on and so forth. That's how they get their viscosity rating, or their flow rate rating. The first synthetic oil to meet API requirements for synthetic motor oils, which API stands for American Petroleum Institute, was AMSOIL. They developed it for jetcraft engines because they found that its ability to reduce friction and critical engine wear parts, as well as its ability to withstand operation in the extreme temperatures and long operating conditions of flight. In 1975, the Mobil Oil Company brought synthetic oil to the public market. By the 1990s, most of the major oil companies had added their version of synthetic oil to the marketplace. Now that you know about synthetic oil and how it came about, let's examine some of the properties of synthetic oil. I have a chart here showing different tests they did between synthetic oil and conventional oil. Wear protection, synthetic oil rose far above. For cleanliness, as far as being contaminated, it was able to withstand far longer. In cold weather, it flows much easier, and in high temperatures, it exceeds the bar almost 3 times for wear and flow rate. The chart shows that synthetic oils flow easy in the cold. That's why there's no loss of prime during first startup. They're also highly resistant to viscosity breakdown or thermal breakdown, which is basically its ability to flow. Conventional oils break down at a much lower temperature than synthetic oils. I have another chart here that shows the difference between temperatures. The fluidity at temperatures low, the lower the viscosity, and the colder the temperatures, the more the fluid the oil is, and the easier the ability is to flow. At the higher temperatures, the viscosity is more viscous and the oil provides a better film strength. Now let's look at some of the pros and cons of using synthetic oil versus conventional. Synthetic oil costs about twice as much, so it's hard if you're on an economical budget, but it lasts almost twice as long, so the cost really average out to about 50 or 60% rather than 100%, or twice as much. Another thing you have to consider is the age of your vehicle. It's not recommended for high mileage vehicles because of the wear that's already happened on the previous miles, the gap between the metal components is larger, and the smaller film of synthetic oil doesn't provide as good protection. It's also not recommended for new engine break-in. During a new engine break-in, there are critical wearing and mating of components such as piston rings, lifters, and camshafts. If they aren't properly worn and mated together, then you can experience critical engine damage. Finally, I'd like to offer some free mechanic advice. Whenever you're having your vehicle serviced, always check with your service manual and go by the service manual recommendations on time. A lot of them will say they'll have two different ratings, one at normal driving conditions and one under severe. Normal driving conditions really don't exist in everyday living. That's for people that are never in stop and go traffic, never in a dusty environment, never hauling a trailer, or never operating for long periods of time. So I think in one way or another, we all fall into that category in one way or another. So severe is what you should really go by, and most of them you'll find are 3,000. Even if you're using synthetic, I wouldn't recommend going past 5,000. There's a few reported cases of people running synthetic oil as long as 25,000 miles, but I would not recommend that. Schedule your oil changes in advance so that you're sure not to miss out. All engines need oil, and once your oil breaks down, it's almost like having no oil at all. So schedule them to keep from having critical engine damage. Make sure that when you have your vehicle serviced, the technician puts a sticker in the window or in the door jamb, whichever you prefer, to remind yourself. The bottom line is synthetic oils lubricate metal better. There's positive and negatives depending on the age and condition of your vehicle and your budget. But when in doubt, check your owner's manual, and if you have a moderate vehicle, synthetic oil is probably best. Thank you for your time.